since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell.
In a brief phone call yesterday after her remarks, President Trump told me he didn't know about the substance of the First Lady's statement ahead of time, adding that she didn't know Epstein. The timing for her remarks was unclear, as the First Lady has not been accused of any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein or his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. The First Lady addressed a 2002 email exchange with Maxwell that was included in the Epstein files, in which she praised a magazine story about Epstein, complimented Maxwell's photo, and signed off with the email, quote, "Love, Melania." The First Lady said that her email, quote, "cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence." She then called on Congress to facilitate a public hearing for Epstein survivors, despite her husband repeatedly decrying the push for transparency as a, quote, Democrat hoax, and fighting the release of the files.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony.
Joining us now is former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg, and co-founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader. She's a contributor to the Notice Perspectives column. Dave, I want to start with you, as you are a Palm Beach native. Something that caught my eye in her statement was also part of her explanation of why she had, quote, never been friends with Epstein, despite, as we all just saw, countless pictures with him on the social circuit. She said, "Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach." Can you break down for us and provide sort of a fact check on how these social circles actually work in a place like Palm Beach?
Jackie, good to be with you. I'm not part of those social circles, but there are pictures of Melania, as you're showing them, with Donald Trump and Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And the person who ties Melania to Jeffrey Epstein directly is journalist Michael Wolff. And I think what she did yesterday was to try to get ahead of a story, because she and Michael Wolff are involved in litigation. And Michael Wolff, apparently, according to the Daily Beast, who she name-checked in the press conference, has these recordings. And the recordings have Jeffrey Epstein's voice on them, saying that the first time that Melania and Donald Trump had sex was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. And I think this press conference is a way to get ahead of it. I think it's less about the social circles as about those recordings that she worries will come out.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we have not independently verified any of that reporting, and we still have not been able to sort of figure out if the First Lady was trying to preempt a negative story that might be in the pipeline, or if it's something that's already out there. But Lauren, I want to ask you about some of the response that we've already seen now to Melania Trump's statement. The survivors are basically criticizing her for her comments and said that she's shifting the blame from elected officials, from people like Pam Bondi, who's still refusing to come testify before Congress under a subpoena about why the whole Epstein tranche of documents has yet to be released, and deflecting it back onto the victims, the survivors, people who have already spent so much time in the limelight, repeating for months and years now their stories over and over again. What's your take on Melania Trump's push for a public hearing featuring the survivors?
So I spoke to one of the survivors last night, and I will tell you that beyond the page of what's in that letter, which essentially says, calling on us to testify is exactly backwards. Already the victims since, the mid-90s have been asking to be heard and taken seriously. Asking them to testify in Congress is a completely perverse way
Inflation
of
risk
shifting
greatly
responsibility back to them.
subsides
And
from
what one
we
of the
were
survivors
concerned
told me
about the
last
past
night is
month.
just it continues to re-traumatize them
where we even
and
have a
keeps
stagflationary
more
type
stress
environment.
on
It's
an
all
already crushing
as
load
you're
of
right, as I
stress and
said
anxiety
on
that
the
these
network
women
last
have been
week,
carrying for
the
decades.
Strait of
The
Hormuz
bigger
being
issue
opened
with the
and
press
oil will start
conference yesterday,
flowing
it's
again.
not what she
There
said,
we
it's
go.
everything
Well,
that she
David,
did
that
not
is certainly
say.
a story that we
She
are going to be
called
watching
on
once again.
Congress to
Markets
call
closing
the
higher. David
victims in
Goodlet's
front of
always
them.
great
She
to
did
see you,
not
David. Thank you
herself
for that
offer to testify
perspective.
under
Here we
oath, which
go.
Hillary Clinton did. She did not call on the Justice Department to release the rest of the files. She did not call on her husband to testify under oath. I mean, the list of what is missing from this is as long as what is there. And it's just, it's incredibly poorly executed. If she's trying to deflect blame from herself, she, in the process, made things worse for the victims and missed endless opportunities to, really call for real accountability.
Dave, talking about going before Congress, Pam Bondi was to go before Congress, and now has said she will not appear before Congress dealing with this investigation on Epstein. How does that play out in your mind? What impact, and what does it say to you that could be the possible reasons that Bondi resists going before Congress?
Rev, Congress issued a subpoena to Attorney General Pam Bondi as her role as Attorney General. So she's saying that she's no longer Attorney General, so she doesn't have to comply. And James Comer, the chair of the committee, is on her side on that. So they could try to issue a subpoena to her in her personal capacity. But what is the consequence if she does not comply? Well, she could be held in contempt of Congress, which will then be referred to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. First, it has to pass through the House, and then DOJ is going to have to prosecute Pam Bondi, and that's not going to happen. There's the internal, inherent contempt power of Congress, but Congress hasn't used that for 100 years, so that power has withered on the vine. They don't have a jail inside the House. So really, there's very little consequence. But, if you really want to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Epstein files, you would subpoena Todd Blanche. He's the acting attorney general. He's the one who's been running point for the Trump administration on this. He's the one who interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell for 9 hours. He's the one apparently who okayed because Donald Trump expected his enemies to land up in a jail cell.
Former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg, thanks for joining us this morning. Lauren Leader, you are sticking with us.